Welcome to Make Today Count, your 20 minutes of fresh conversation served up to inform, educate and inspire an abundant life. I'm your host Ross Dean, and each episode I chat to thought leaders, influencers and experts in their game who all have one thing in common: the desire to go that extra mile, pushing against the status quo to create a richer life for both themselves and those around them, powered by compassion and driven by the need to leave the world that little bit better than when they arrived. Hi guys, and welcome back to Make Today Count. We have another amazing guest today in the form of Natasha Hodge from Wide-Eyed Nutrition. Natasha's 4-year struggle with eczema and weight gain led to her quest to find answers as to why conventional advice does not lead to good health. She was shocked to find that all the accepted guidelines we're told to follow and currently perceived as fact are just plain wrong. Desperate for answers to the question of what our bodies need for great health, Natasha embarked on a research journey which included gaining a diploma in nutrition. Natasha has been working on eating plans with clients since 2014 in her business, Wide-Eyed Nutrition. And Natasha currently runs corporate training and weekly groups, coaching the importance of real food for great mental health in collaboration with Katrina Love, a positive mindset coach, with their business Happy People Solutions. Natasha's ultimate aim is to educate and to reverse the worldwide trend of increasing chronic illness. Natasha, thanks so much for coming on. How are you?
I'm very well. Thanks very much for having me, Ross.
Oh, no, it's great to have you here. Nutrition was something that I really want to have a conversation about when I kind of started the podcast. When I kind of went out to some of the listeners and asked kind of, what would you love me to sort of chat about with some great guests. A lot of the things that came back through my Instagram were about a lot of different things, to be honest. But nutrition was one of those key things because I think it's something that a lot of us kind of struggle with. But before we do that, what I'd love to do, if the listeners haven't come across the work that you did before, I just wonder if you can give us a quick kind of rundown as kind of a little bit on your backstory and then sort of how you got up to where you are today.
Great. Okay. So, yes, as you said in my little blurb at the beginning there, I struggled with eczema and weight gain really for about 40 odd years. Yeah. So from the age of about 7, I was overweight, and then it was a struggle just to kind of meet society's expectations and stay at what we would class as a normal weight. And it just, I'm a comfort eater, and I never questioned whether it was food that had anything to do with my eczema either. But I had quite a stressful job in the sort of from 2003 to 2010. And when I left that, I just happened upon a health company, and that started to make me think about what I was putting into my body. I've never equated health as such, as it being fundamental to what I was eating. I had followed all the advice, which was low fat, brown bread, brown rice, all those sorts of things. And I just kept thinking, why is it not easy to lose weight? Why does my body not, is it fighting against it really?
Yeah.
So I started to really properly look at why I needed to find out the answers, and digging a little bit deeper, it was really actually quite simple in the end, because we've been going against our biology. All the information out there goes against human biology, and it's really quite simple when you get down to it. We are designed to eat less sugar. We're designed to eat meat, vegetables, nuts, dairy. That's about it. And I then got a bit cross, really. I just thought, why is that information not out there, as a health message all the time? Because then that would mean that we wouldn't have people with chronic illness and diabetes going through the roof, and cancer and heart disease and all those sorts of things, if the body was given what it needed. So that's when I properly studied nutrition, got a diploma in it. And I must say, even in the education sector, when I did my diploma, had to argue against everything because it was all conventional wisdom, and it was all, as far as I was concerned, it was all wrong. I got a distinction in it, so they must have liked the arguments that I put forward. So then it was just, I don't know what to do with the diploma, but I needed to tell people. So that's how wide-eyed nutrition came into being. But sorry, go on.
No, and I guess like a lot of things, some of the things that come out of challenges are way we end up either working in those sectors or kind of pushing ourselves in that way. So how long was it after you kind of reached the diploma that you thought this was something that I kind of want to do as a job, and how did you progress with that?
It had already, I was already in the sort of health world, working with a health company at that point. So I was then really doing presentations and telling people about this sort of alternative message, I suppose.
Yeah.
And it just grew from there. I became an advisor to a gym, and we did a health plan, and then it just evolved and organically became an eating plan. And then working with other, brilliant people. I mean, obviously, meeting Katrina.
Yeah.
She's a psychotherapeutic counsellor, and the meeting of minds was that she just realised the people she was treating, if she asked them what they were eating, they were eating really badly, and that equated to poor mental health. And
I think we forget that sometimes, don't we? Because those things are so heavily aligned. When we think about kind of maybe losing weight or maybe enhancing our nutrition, we immediately think about what we're putting into our bodies. But then around that is also kind of the mindset that we're in, our sort of our beliefs that we have around food and all that kind of stuff. So it's really, I can see why you did that. It's kind of a two-pronged attack in kind of helping these people out in kind of getting what they need.
That's right. If you think about the rise in antidepressant use and the rise in just people being diagnosed with anxiety and depression, it has totally coincided with the infiltration of processed food into our everyday lives. Most people eat something processed every day, and it's not the correct fuel. So no wonder our brains aren't functioning as they used to, or as they should to their optimum ability.
Something that really resonated me when you first started talking was you mentioned that yourself, that you're an emotional eater, and that's something that I can sort of resonate with as well. And also sort of looking at my family and I can see kind of trends within there as well. I'm guessing people must come to you in lots of different ways, whether it's directly through yourself, through the website, or via the workshops that you do at in workplaces or with Katrina. Are there kind of trends in kind of how people come to you and what they're coming to you for, or is it really varied?
They're mostly frustrated with the current advice that they're getting. So they've got to the point where they're like, I've tried everything, that's not working. I can see that you maybe have an alternative view on it, and I'm willing to give it a go because I'm desperate at this point. A lot of the people I deal with are desperate. They've tried everything. And I was the same. I'd done your Slimming World, the Weight Watchers, I'd done the cabbage soup diet, I'd done the I don't know, just starving yourself to or exercising to the ridiculous, all those different things. And it's just so frustrating. It kept coming back to the fact that I kept thinking, my body does not want to do this. It cannot be this hard. Since the 70s, we're just getting more and more unhealthy, but the same message is there all the time. So something isn't right. And so that's where I went to. But with, I think mostly when people look, maybe they go onto the website or whatever, they see the about message. So my backstory, I've been an overweight person, and now I don't even think about it. I haven't been on the scales for, God, where are we now? So about 6 years. And it was one of those things that I got on every day before that, and that would determine my day.
Because I think when we look at these other kind of diets, and as you know, there's an abundance of so many of these different plans and diets, and more so kind of magnified, I think, today in the rise of social media, whereby there's more avenues where people kind of get information. But also on the flip side of that, there's also lots more different ways and more frequent ways where they could get kind of, I guess, sort of negative views and of themselves, or I guess looking at other people and kind of putting themselves against them. And what I've found from friends and family that I know have had struggles in those areas as well is that it's just like you say, they try all these different things, and it's just that nothing seems to work, or that they kind of work for a short period of time, makes them feel great for a while, and sometimes they're just not kind of sustainable for either their lifestyle or just for, you know, a general eating practice. What have you kind of found? Is it the fact that some of these diets are just not sustainable for the long term, or is it the fact that people are doing them wrong? What have you kind of found that is kind of the main crux of that?
I mean, the mainstream dietary advice out there, and the one that sticks obviously to the psyche the most, I suppose, is the low-fat movement, which has been around, you know, since the 60s. So we've got this mantra that most doctors still stick to, the NHS definitely stick to, a lot of people do, the eat less, move more thing, which is basically working on the assumption that if you eat too many calories and don't move around enough, then you will gain weight. And inversely, if you eat less and really exercise, then you'll lose weight. But if that really did work, if you just think about it on a basic level, if you had 100 calories of meat and 100 calories of Smarties, with their philosophy, they are the same. They are calories, and that's that. But where is the nutrition in the Smarties? If that really were true, then we could eat 1,500 calories of donuts a day, go to the gym, and it'll all be fine.
That'd be quite a nice day.
It would go against our biology. So my thing is, and I think the surprising thing to me was that you could eat any amount of food as long as it filled you up and it was the correct food, and I didn't feel hungry afterwards. Then it didn't matter if it went over. We don't ever count calories, because it's a nonsense. My body doesn't clock up how many calories I put in. It clocks up what sort of energy I put in there, what sort of nutrients, what sort of vitamins and minerals I put in there. So it's unsustainable. If you in human biology, we need fat to even absorb any vitamins and minerals, and that's why we like the taste of it. And so low fat is very unsustainable long term. Don't get me wrong, it definitely works. I've lost 3 stone twice with Slimming World, but if it worked, why did I need to lose it twice? So
and I think that's the frustration. That's the frustration, isn't it, with a lot of these things, because they can work for a period of time, like you've said. You lost 3 stone twice, but it's at the end of the day, from my own experience and the experience of people that I know, you just kind of lose that, especially for someone that enjoys food, maybe they enjoy eating out, and it's a social thing, it's something that brings families together. You end up kind of either not wanting to do those things, or you put them off, and that's losing so much abundance from in so many other areas of your life. And I think also, as well, you spoke about sort of calories and stuff. That can be quite onerous, can't it, to sort of keep a track on some of these things, however you kind of measure these things, whether it's via calories or other means. And equally, a lot of these diets have products that are associated with that particular diet, and you sort of look at how much calorie intake there, but then you realize that it's got a ton of sugar in it or something like that. So it's really counterintuitive in that respect.
But also, it's not addressing your behaviour.
No,
I mean, when you go to a slimming club, it's all about the weight. So it's already a negative experience, because you're concerned about that. It's not It's not about why you overeat. It doesn't address that. That was definitely one of my bugbears. I wanted to look at why people were almost they self-sabotage. You get to a certain point, you're feeling great, and then you go, oh, bugger it, I'm gonna eat the pizza, I'm gonna eat the donuts.
And I remember,
so could we do that?
Yeah, I know, and I quite vividly remember sort of in the past, kind of friends going to clubs and that kind of stuff, and that kind of conversation you'd have. You'd see someone on their way to the club, and it's like, "Oh, haven't eaten. I'm gonna get weighed, but I haven't eaten for like the rest." And it's like, tomorrow you're gonna eat, and then you're gonna be more than you were today. It's just kind of from my perspective, it was a more of a sense of that you're going to get validation that you'd lost something.
Yeah. Or to commiserate. That's the thing. You used to sit around and people would go, oh, I've had a terrible week, and people would say, well, that's all right, and it isn't sustainable because it's not focusing on the right things. It's not re-educating you, is it? It's not getting you to the point where you'll go back to eating how you did before and everything will be fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the far worse message right now is the vegan message. That's very, very worrying to me. I just think, well, we've got this situation where veganism is now being perceived as much more healthy. The healthy option is also, they've got this other angle where they're saying that it's great for the climate, and I take issue with absolutely both of those 100%. I think it's so dangerous to keep moving that kind of idea on, because from the climate point of view, you've got total misinformation from the 2006 study where they claimed that meat production was responsible for 18% of the greenhouse emissions. But they've since discovered it was completely flawed, that study. It was comparing other emissions in a totally different way, and the UN have even recognised that it was flawed and disregarded it. But it stayed. It's completely stayed as fact, and it couldn't be further from the truth. We're in a situation where the only thing that's going to stop desertification on this planet is if we have more livestock to regenerate our soil. And so that bit drives me mad. I am totally in agreement that we need to get rid of feedlots and intensively farmed factory meats.
Yeah.
But real meat, I mean, we're so lucky in Suffolk because we are near, grass-fed meat and livestock, and they're taking all the lovely nutrients in from the sun and everything. But we can't be in a situation where we're throwing out the most, nutritionally dense food on the planet, which is red meat. Again, it's another one of those myths where people have said, red meat consumption should be reduced. It's utterly untrue. It just biologically is the best form of bioavailable vitamins and minerals for us as humans.
And I guess it's given sort of the public another thing to try, and I think to alongside some of these other sort of eating trends as well. So you can imagine how confused a lot of people are, and you must see that all the time. Should I be eating vegan? Is that the right thing to do?
Completely. But it's become this ingrained thing. Well, if I was vegan, I'd be much, much healthier. Well, I can tell you firsthand that it isn't true. Maybe some people survive for longer, but I did it. I actually did an experiment. So I've been eating the way I eat now, which is basically I intermittently fast, and then I eat mostly meat, fish, vegetables, nuts, and fat. And I was eating like that from 2014 to 2018, and then I was seduced by the hype as well. And I thought, perhaps, I know the advantages of vegetables. I'm going to go vegan. I'm going to try it out. So that's what I did. But in a very short amount of time, and obviously bear in mind I was very healthy at that point, because I've been eating as I advocate now.
Yeah.
But after 8 weeks, I had it can only be described as a breakdown, totally out of the blue,
Okay. Yeah.
an actual breakdown. So I had to have blood tests done, because I wasn't at that point sure that it was because I'd gone vegan. I just thought I better have some blood tests.
Yeah.
And of course they test all sorts of things, but the B12 and the D3, which is basically B12 is what's linked to anxiety. So people have anxiety, then they're generally deficient in B12. And depression is a deficiency in D3.
Okay.
So bear in mind, obviously, what I had been eating. Then by that point, my B12, I think, was something like 342 mil. And my D3 was 73. And then a year later, when I went back on meat, exactly what I eat now and what I was eating pre-veganism, my B12 had gone from 342 to 1004. So I depleted myself so fast that my body did not cope, and my brain certainly didn't cope. It took me about a month to recover. Honestly, I couldn't work. I couldn't think straight. So that's worrying that, it can happen that fast. And this is being touted as, a lot of young girls are eating this way.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I really agree with what you're saying. And like I say, I think people are not aware that there's a lot of food groups that a lot of these things just don't include. And as humans, we were created to graze on all these types of different things in moderation. It's something to remember as well. But especially when you look at some of these sort of products, especially things like these diet teas and all these kinds of things, basically you're just giving someone water and some tea or some laxative or whatever is in them, and they are going to lose weight. Of course they're going to lose weight, but then what is your body not retaining, to allow you to function? And
that's right. But I mean, corporate interest is all about that, isn't it? So the rise in veganism has just opened up a whole new fresh wave of processed food. They can slap vegan on it, and it's then seen as healthy.
The one that always makes me giggle is when I go if you pick up some petrol at the garage, and you look on the counter, and then you've got your Mars bars with protein Mars bar and all these other ones. That's like, well, it must be fine then. It's got protein in it. I can just eat it, and it's going to be great. But it's we laugh about it, but it's products where when people are confused as to what they can eat, it's they see and it's I can have that as I can eat a ton of protein Mars bars or whatever, and I'll be fine. But it is quite scary. So I think what I'm hearing is that there are ways that we can eat really well. We can enjoy the food that we're eating, and still have the benefits of whether that's losing weight, having a clearer mind, all that good stuff. Could you just go into a little bit about kind of what you mean by that, by enjoying your food as well as sort of eating, a varied kind of product line?
Yeah. I mean, if you're eating without deprivation, then you're going to keep with it, aren't you? So if you're eating things that make you satisfied, that taste really good, the great thing is, as I said before, because we've evolved to eat fat, because that's how we derive the nutrition from food. So you can't eat a salad and get the or say some spinach. You can't get the actual nutrition from it. The vitamins and minerals are not unlocked without fat. So putting a load of garlic butter in there, for example, not only makes it taste better, it actually makes you absorb the things that your body requires. So that's a win-win, isn't it, already?
Oh yeah, I'm all for garlic butter. That's fine.
Exactly. So if you're denying your basic biology, so if you're saying, okay, I'm going to eat very low fat and I'm going to eat it very small amounts today, and then I'm going to exercise really hard, which then makes me more hungry, but I'm going to say to myself, you mustn't eat that, pork chop or whatever. I'm going to eat can't even think, a lettuce leaf or whatever it is, then your body is going to rebel against that. you know, and and your brain is actually going to rebel against that, because it's going to say, I can't keep going with this is rubbish, I'm going to throw the towel in. What we're aiming for all the time is for our bodies to find balance. So you know, for repair, we need to get our bodies working correctly. So, you know, if our immune system is mostly based in our digestive system, then you've got to look after it, haven't you? So that's your first line of defense. So making it sustainable just means getting your body in balance. And if your body feels great, then you're going to stick with it. And that's what we've found with, you know, so many of our members. They just get to the point where they just go, I can't believe how good I feel and how much more energy I have. And that keeps you going, and that keeps you experimenting with the foods that are right for your particular body. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's actually finding the key that unlocks the energy for you, not about anybody else.
Yeah. And I mean, also what you're saying as well about, you know, all the foods you're mentioning and that kind of thing. These are all amazing foods that we can be eating, and they're not restrictive at all. You know, I think a lot of these things aren't sustainable is that someone tells you can't eat X, but you like X, and maybe you could have X in, you know, in moderation. And generally that makes you feel better, I think, you know, if you're...
The trouble is with the word moderation, it slightly worries me, because we are a society that is completely and utterly wallowing in too much sugar. So whether it's, you know, sugar in your cereal or it is the actual bread, pasta or rice, we've just got too much of it. So we've got all this insulin running around our bodies, and it's affecting pretty much every cell in our body. So that's not a good thing. So if we get rid of that and we're looking at really delicious food that is serving a purpose, and there's so many other things and food swaps out there, because that's another thing, you know, we're trying to kind of wean people away from eating sugary foods. And it's definitely erring on the side of low carbohydrate. We do include some carbs, but it's educating people to realize that actually they're perceived as energy giving foods, and you have far more energy when you don't eat them. So it's, you know, it's working it out for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And there's those foods that are deemed to be like the comfort foods, aren't they? The ones that we think are going to give us the benefit.
That's right.
You know,
but if you go down, as I said, sorry, I lost the thread on the moderation thing. if you said to an alcoholic, drink alcohol in moderation, that'd be mad advice. So most people are carbohydrate and sugar holics, and so saying to them, have it in moderation, isn't going to work. Because they'll just go, well, my moderation is 4 Mars bars, as you said before, and yours is 1. You know, it then becomes so confusing that if you just go, you know, those things, they ain't so great, stay away from them.
Yeah, it's a very, very personal thing in that respect, isn't it?
And
when I guess when someone's sort of looking for someone to work with, you know, like yourself, in to help them with the nutrition or diets and that kind of thing, what should they be looking for when they're sort of looking for someone to work with?
They need people that are going to... You're looking for somebody that's got credibility and recommendations, really. So if you're, you know, hopefully they've got a website, you'd go on the website, you'd have a look at their bio or their about section, and that's where, whatever their story is, it needs to resonate with you, and you're going to say, actually, that, you know, that's my story, that's what I need help with. And so that person's going to, they're going to, you know, empathize with you and have an emotional, they've had the same emotional journey, so they can help you do that. But also somebody, you know, as I say, the recommendation thing is important. So, you know, it might be word of mouth, but it might be that you go on something like Facebook and ask. There's so many groups out there, especially in your local area. You can go on sort of business areas and say, who's the best nutrition advisor out here, and people will come back with those things, and then you just try them all. So the person that you like the sound of best, you know, and the person, when you speak to them, if they feel right, that's a person to go with, isn't it?
And I think, like anything, you know, people by people, and if you can make a connection that they've gone through that kind of thing before that you're going through, it's easier to have those conversations, I think, isn't it? Rather than
Definitely.
Rather than to go into your local diet group and it's just going to be someone that just weighs you and then sends you off on your merry way afterwards.
That's it.
Excellent. So with we mentioned some of the benefits around sort of energy and everything, but as you've touched upon before, mental health is something that's a huge byproduct of enhancing your nutrition and feeling great within yourself. That must be something that really comes out in people when you work with them.
I would say, especially in our groups, I'd say that that's actually the biggest advancement that we've noticed. So people that have come to us very often have symptoms of anxiety and depression. And as Katrina, my partner, says, she goes through the symptoms of anxiety and depression. And if you put them against the symptoms of malnutrition, they are almost identical.
Okay.
So it's unbelievable how far people can come just in a few weeks of eating for their brain to work correctly. We've literally had people that haven't been able to leave the house on their own for a year or so and have eaten well and have suddenly had the confidence to do it. It's not, it's not unusual for us to know that that's going to happen, but to have that feedback is just unbelievable.
And something that I hear over and over again through other conversations that we've had on the podcast as well is that in those circumstances when you're feeling low or you feel that you've been anxious for a period of time, we all go to a GP and the immediate thing is to give medication out at that point. I agree that medication can work really well with talking therapies in some circumstances. It's really dependent on the person. But again, that old adage of, what you put into your body, you get out of your body. So if you put crap in, you're going to get crap out.
Absolutely.
And this really, this goes back to the conversation I've had with other people as well around, this stuff isn't taught in schools, is it? We would go and learn all this other information about all things that we probably wouldn't ever use for the rest of our lives, but general kind of dietary stuff. Another thing we've spoken about before is around finance, managing of money, that kind of stuff. Just those kind of key skills that we're just not taught in schools. And
but if you think that your average doctor has 2 hours nutrition training in their 7 years, you're not going to get it in schools either, are you?
No, that's the thing, isn't it? And I think that's where we need to push some way in trying to get that further down the line. And also, your GP has, a 10-minute session with you, I think, or probably less than that. I don't know what to kind of go through these things. So he or she has limited time.
That's right. But they're managing illness, aren't they? They're not really in the business of prevention and managing health. Because it's really it's firefighting at that point, isn't it?
Indeed. When I kind of think about it, I kind of think that the GP practices need to maybe sort of move in more of a direction of where it's more kind of lifestyle led in a lot of ways.
That's right.
Whereby obviously there's the medical aspects of that which obviously needs to be considered for a lot of complexities that people come in with, but I just think there's so much to be said for all these different aspects of lifestyle, whether it's sleep, whether it's movement, whether it's your diet. There's all these things that, like you say, you've seen them with your clients and the people that come to your workshops, and that just changing a few simple things in what they're eating day to day can have such a benefit.
That's right. I mean, one of our members, he had a stroke back in 2012, and obviously given the same old conventional advice, and he was in a bad place when he came to us, and he completely turned his health around. But he always says, you wouldn't put diesel in a petrol car and expect it to go. So why would you put the wrong food in and expect your brain to be, the best it can be?
Yeah,
it's true, isn't it? It's got to be fueled correctly. And if you're living on Greg's sausage rolls, sorry, Greg's, but if you're living on those all the time, you're not getting the best from your brain.
I guess one of the objections that people might have is that maybe certain ways of eating or preparation of food or that kind of thing just isn't a good fit for kind of their lifestyle. If they're, if they're working, maybe they've got young children, all this kind of stuff, and maybe they think it's going to be quite difficult to do that. Do you come across that much in the people that you work with?
I mean, that's probably one of the biggest things, isn't it? And we've all got the same amount of hours in the day.
Yeah.
But that's totally, people are very much, I can't cook from scratch, because it is about that. It is saying to yourself, I'm going to put me first, and what I put in my body is so important. All the other things are not going to happen if I'm not doing it for myself here and now. What am I putting it off for? So I've always said, you either make time to for your health now, or you make time to be ill later, because it's like health insurance, but it's, sort of, you're going to have to make slight changes, and that gets easier as time goes on. So obviously, yes, if you're normally slam it in the microwave, ready meal kind of person, then it is going to impact on your time. But if you make gradual sort of steps towards cooking, maybe in larger quantities, and putting it in the freezer, you can still put it in the microwave, but you made it, and it's going to serve a purpose, and you're going to feel great afterwards. So, and as I say, yes, it does take a little bit of time, and people don't want to change their routine and stuff. But then, if you're not feeling the best you can possibly feel now, then stay like that. That's up to you, isn't it? That's absolutely fine. Make changes without actually changing something.
That's right. And I think there's a lots of ways that you can kind of get creative around these things as well. There's lots of different ways that you, like you say, you can prepare food and that kind of thing. I mean, one of the things that, from personal experience, what we've done at home over the past year and a half, we get one of these like delivery boxes that come every week.
They're always helpful.
From Gusto, and that's been fantastic for us. A lot of the beforehand we were buying the same old things from the supermarket, so we weren't looking forward to the meals that we'd have during the week. And we like food, we like kind of eating out and enjoying food, but we weren't kind of enjoying the meals that we had. We didn't feel that there was much variety there, but also we had a ton of wastage as well. We'd get a Tesco shop and there'd be a ton of vegetables left, and what we've found is that having some really nice ones that we can kind of pick out, and they can be, we usually keep to kind of the vegetarian and stuff, and then we have a bit of meat and that kind of stuff in. But it's been really nice, and talking about convenience, and one of if people are saying they haven't got the time, that turns up at our door. We order it, and it's there, and we can just pop in the fridge and then make the meals. And I appreciate that might be a good, not be a good fit for everyone, but it's just one of the ways that you can kind of get around some of these objections. And I think, like you say, exactly what you said there, it depends on what it's worth to you. Is it worth that you're investing in your future? If you've got children as well, and that's a whole nother conversation. But it's learned behaviour, isn't it, from our kids?
Right, and teaching them from an early age. I mean, honestly, that's probably my one regret, that I didn't learn this earlier, because my children were 13 when I embarked on the journey. So, previous to that, my son, bless him, he was 17 when I started Happy People. And he followed it and lost 5 stone in 6 months. So, we knew amazing. We were onto something, because 17-year-old boy can do it. Anybody can do it.
And what a great gift that is. So he can now go on and he can tell his mates and all that kind of stuff, and how he went.
And the transformation was amazing, and it wasn't just his physical transformation. He just was more confident after that, because unfortunately, as you said right at the beginning, this generation especially is so image conscious, and it's a shame. But if also you're bombarded by all the different foods around you, you're trying to uphold this image, but you're also fueling your body incorrectly, and so that's going to be a struggle as well, isn't it? You're never going to have normal body weight if you're eating your body weight in chocolate.
But, and that's fantastic, and that's something that we all try and do with our children, just to try and steer them in the right path that we we hope we can do. But I mean, that's amazing. I mean, if you said he's had all those other benefits as well, and not just the kind of the weight loss, that's really, and must be really lovely to see from a mum's point of view as well.
Well, I mean, it's just then you kind of, not only was he our sort of pioneer number one, that proved it worked, but he just blossomed. So
Lovely to see.
and also all the different things that then come with it, because if you're not eating well, you generally don't want to exercise because you don't have the energy. It's your brain literally says you have not got the correct energy on board, and therefore I don't want you to move. So you have no wish to, I would be like, you've got to get up and move and all this stuff, but it's fighting against your own biology. And as soon as he started to eat well, then he exercised just naturally because he had an abundance of energy. So then your body tones up and you get stronger and you feel better in that way as well.
Well, I guess one of the other challenges that you must see a lot is that where maybe someone's come to you for help and they're doing really well, but maybe it's a bit of a fight when they get home because maybe they've got a partner, a husband, or someone else that they live with at home that may not either may not have an issue, so may not think they have any need to sort of change what they do. And we all know it's so important that we have that kind of positive encouragement when we're doing anything. We have that sort of community of like-minded people around us. Is that something that you see often, and how do you kind of steer people when that happens?
I mean, that happens all the time. We find a lot of the members and my clients, their families are glad that they're doing it, but they don't want it to encroach on them.
Okay.
So, their lifestyle might be that they want to go out and have afternoon tea somewhere, and you're saying, well, it's not really going to suit me. And they'll be like, well, it's then you feel bad and all those sorts of things. But the bottom line is that person, whether they're your closest loved one or just a friend, who wants you to go out for a few cocktails, they don't have to live in your body and get to the end of your life. So if you're making changes for the better, you've got to stay selfish, really, because a lot of people put other people first and their health last. And so if you're, especially in your transition period, I've now been living like this for sort of 6 years, and every now and again I think, well, that's fine, I'll eat what I want, I'll join the group and eat I can't even think of what it would be, an ice cream, let's just say that. Like ice cream, that's fine, I've had it, but the impact on how I feel later after it isn't worth it. It just isn't worth it. It is that magnified. You kind of think, I've got a sugar hangover here. And most people, you know what a hangover feels like, but most people won't realise that they're suffering from a food hangover day in, day out.
And that benefit is so short-lived, isn't it?
That's it. But those people, it's not that they don't want you to succeed. They don't want you to change, because then it means that they might have to. So it's all quite, it's an emotional quagmire. And again, we go into that. We go into the fact that does happen because people are often quite comfortable with you not changing or how you might be. They don't want to see that, because then that means that they might have to do something about themselves. And that's threatening then.
And I guess they just need to go on their own journey as and when it's right for them,
That's right.
And I guess in a lot of circumstances, you probably have clients that do really well, gain loads of benefits, and then the wife or the partner turns around and says, "Oh, I think I'll do that now." When they
totally. That really often happens. Other people. You're leading by example, aren't you?
Yeah.
So you're going to get to the stage where people. It is definitely not worth kind of crowing about it and telling all and sundry, because if people aren't ready to change, then they'll just get cross with you. So we kind of quietly go about our business, and don't make a fuss. And then if someone says, you're looking really good, or you seem to have so much more energy, and then they're interested, and that's the time to tell them, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like anything, I think if you can just see small little benefits along the way, it really can lift you to kind of propel you further.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. We've spoken about some of the myths that I guess people might have. We said about don't have the time, that kind of thing. Too expensive, maybe one that comes up as well. People thinking they've got to go out and buy all this posh food, nutritious, grass-fed, all this type of malarkey. How do you kind of guide them around the choice of buying food and sort of investing in food?
I mean, I certainly don't say to people, right, everything's got to be organic. Yes, the ultimate in nutritional quality would be, Wagyu beef and all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
But we've got to live in the real world, and the funny thing is, the cheaper cuts of meat and your cheaper fish, actually, they've got more nutrition to them. So we're in this sort of situation where everybody buys very lean meat and stuff. But if you're buying the fattier cuts, which A, have more flavour, B, have more nutrition, and C, are easy to cook because you just leave them for ages, chuck them in the oven and they're done. Or you're buying things like sardines, or these are cheap types of fish. These are great. So you don't have to spend loads of money. And I would argue, if you walk around the supermarket and you're buying your eye is called buy one get one free, and then it goes off, or it's nutritionally empty, then you really are wasting money. So I always think, yes, it might take a little bit more money initially, because you might have to buy more spices to to enhance your cooked from scratch meal. Once you've got them, they're there, aren't they? So, but I always think as well, because we eat in a smaller eating window, so we use intermittent fasting, you're missing one of the meals that you would normally have anyway. So you've already cut your food bill down by a third.
Yeah. Just for if someone hasn't come across it before, could you just briefly explain what intermittent fasting is for the listeners?
So if you think about the biology of the body, how we evolved was, to maybe kill something one day, eat a load of it, sit around digesting it, and then perhaps there wouldn't be any more food for a bit. So we evolved to fast, so have periods without food. You can't go periods without water. You can go periods without food. So obviously at the moment we're in a situation of overnutrition. We're eating too often and we're eating the wrong things. But if you just, reduce the eating window and have a longer time where your body can basically utilize the energy that it's got on board, it's got time to repair, it's got time to digest, it's got time to just basically function properly without having to digest or have, as we said earlier, the insulin rushing around your body all the time. So the benefits of intermittent fasting are many, many things, and the more research that's done, the better it looks for the human body to not be eating all the time. So we just say to people, most of the time you're going to be asleep when you're fasting. So we push back. Breaking your fast is the first meal of the day. Breakfast does not have to be at 7 o'clock in the morning. So that's, I would say that's probably one of the biggest shifts. People are like, oh, breakfast is that's the most important meal of the day. But guess what?
Just a culture shift, I guess, because it just goes against what we've kind of learned from kids. Have to have breakfast. It's the most important meal. Blah blah blah. Yeah. So it just takes time, I guess, just to work through that. It does,
but then you've got to understand where it came from, and it comes from follow the money, because Kellogg's came up with that slogan. They are not stupid. They wanted to sell more cereal. So and that's what have we got? We've got a massive aisle of cereals.
See, Tony the Tiger was lying to me all these years.
I'm afraid he was, Ross. Definitely.
Yeah, what are we going to do, eh? I guess another thing that that people might come up against is kind of just keeping that momentum going. And I think from what you're saying, one of the great things about kind of the services that you guys offer is that there's that consistent kind of conversation, support, which maybe people aren't getting if they're following an eating plan or a diet, if you want to call it that, on their own. How important is that? Continuing that conversation, having that opportunity to talk things through whilst you're going through a plan like this.
I mean, the point is, if you're eating well, then you will probably it's self-sustaining. But if you really want to stick to it, especially in your early stages, then ask a friend or even a family member to help you, because you can even say to them, you don't have to do it forever. If you just do this initial bit with me, just to get me on track. People are generally, they want to help.
Yeah.
We have that in us where we just want to help. So if you just say, if you could just help me because I'm really desperate for this. Yeah, obviously I'd say join a group like Happy People, because the camaraderie with other people, like-minded people like you who are on the same wavelength, it's invaluable. But other than that, you could join a Facebook group, so you don't even have to leave the house. You can follow people on Twitter. There's loads of advice out there, so then you don't feel so alone because you can interact with those people as well.
And I guess also it's important to have that community around you, or there's people to go to that are kind of following the same kind of plan or that you are. I'm guessing that I think you see that sometimes when you see people having conversations, maybe they're doing different plans and they're saying, well, I can eat this and I can't eat that. And then there's that kind of thing. I think that's important point as well, right. That you're kind of, you're following that same route, because, you need that. You just need that support as and when you need it,
You do. I mean, because there's always going to be days where you go off the rails as such, or you're really close to. We have a WhatsApp group, so we've had people, say, "Oh my God, the office is filled with cake. Somebody's birthday today. They've bought in donuts," and the whole group will go, just look at it and think, I'm so glad that's not me, because I'm doing the best for me. And why don't you pop out and get, I don't know, some roast chicken, or you might want to go out and get some nuts or something, or a bit of fruit, just to keep you going. But always remember that you're doing the best for you. And the cake's going to go in, and it's gone, and you probably won't feel great later on. So we just help each other just to get over those sort of small moments where that temptation just seems too much.
Yeah. We've gone through lots of different things. I think this is something we could go on for another couple of hours, but because as we're talking, I can just think of all these things coming up in my brain, and hopefully we could maybe schedule some other conversations around some of the other kind of niche topics, and that'd be fantastic. The purpose of the podcast, Make Today Count, is for people to take away some actionable points after listening that they could maybe enhance the next day. So whether it's something to do with your finance, your mental health, nutrition, your fitness, something, if they wanted to enhance the nutrition, they just want to make a small change the next day. When we're talking about nutrition, what could that one thing they could do, that small step that they could take the next day?
I would say that the most important thing is to eat less often. So if you could try and start reducing the time that you eat to approximately 8 hours a day, to say from between 12 and 8 every day. So you just, move your breakfast further and further until it becomes brunch or lunch. You can still eat your 3 meals, but eat them in that time period, because most of it you'll be asleep. You won't even notice it. And if you start your first meal of the day with sort of something protein-based, you'll feel fuller for longer and you'll have more energy. And it gets to the point where you just don't even miss the food first thing. And I think that's the biggest surprise. But that's definitely whatever you eat, yes, I advocate eating in a certain way and eating real food, but that's my top tip. So whatever you eat, just reduce the time you eat in to 8 hours.
And just so we've got kind of an example from that, we'll use me as an example because I'm here. So say if usually I get up, I usually have breakfast around 7 in the morning. I would then have a lunch around about 12:30, and then I would eat a dinner around about 5:30, 6 o'clock. So if I wanted to kind of change that up a little bit, what would kind of my pattern be for the next day?
So if you say your last food was, so do you actually eat at 6:30?
I would say I'd say
5:30.
5:30. So I reckon about by 6 I've finished my meal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you stopped eating at 6,
Yeah.
you would start eating again at 10 a.m. the next day.
Got you.
So
Okay.
instead of having your breakfast at 7, you'd move it to 10, and then you'd have all the other food that you'd normally eat between 10 and 6.
Got it. That's really helpful. I think I know from my own self, if I have kind of an example to kind of to work from, I think that's going to help a lot of people out. So thank you when they're listening to this. That's really helpful. You've got lots of stuff going on. We've spoken about the groups that you run and that kind of thing. What are you kind of working on at the moment, and what can people kind of look forward to?
So we've condensed the weekly classes into coaching now for corporate training, so we can do that in sort of in a day or a couple of days, depending on what they need. But also, I mean, because the pressures of the working environment, especially in this country, we're working very long hours, but we're not fueled correctly, so we're not really, just is making it harder for us. But the thing I suppose we're working on currently is a webinar, so that actually we've had inquiries from all over the UK and other countries, in fact. So we want to be able to roll it out further afield. We will have groups because currently we're at Base Point, Ipswich, but we're going to have groups, in various different places. But with the webinar, we can go worldwide.
And be sure to share as and when you've got their links, be sure to share that with me, and I can share it out and all that kind of good stuff as well. So
brilliant.
Thank you so much for your time, Natasha. It's been really insightful. Like I said, there's loads of things that we could sort of go on about, and it's such an important topic, and it's really nice to kind of get some clarity around some of these things, because it is a bit of a minefield, and when everything comes into play, the emotions and all that kind of stuff, it can be really challenging for a lot of people. So just to really acknowledge you really for the work that you do. And I can see from the website that there's so many lovely sort of testimonials from people that have gone through their own journeys and have been fortunate enough to have you along the way. So just wanted to acknowledge you for that, and say thank you on behalf of everyone you're helping. Thank you so much. My name's Ross Dean. This has been Make Today Count. If you really love this episode, what I'd love you to do is comment on the show notes page. Also, wherever you're listening to this, be it iTunes, Spotify, all those good places. If you've liked what you heard today, please leave us a review. It really helps us to get the messages out to further afield. But until next time, I've been Ross Dean. This has been Make Today Count. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.